morning and welcome to Morning Devotion. Put love in action is the topic of our discussion today. Let me ask you this question. To whom would you give your last meal? To your son who is hungry and dying? Or to a perfect stranger you never met? The story is found in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 7 to 15. We learn about a widow who found a man at her doorstep asking for food. Now, she didn't have any more food. This is her last meal. And there comes a man with the reputation that he is the guy who said there will be no more rain for 3.5 years until I say so. And because he said these words, there was no rain, there was no food, there was no crops, and people are dying. That's the man who comes and wants her son's last meal. To some, the choice is easy. I just feed my children. That's a more responsible thing to do. But this woman teaches us something different. I believe she was able to put love in action. She was able to look beyond her own need. She was able to overcome the resentment of the man who is responsible for these things. And she did something commendable. The Bible says that she went and did as Elijah told her to do. And this is what we learn, because the story kind of turned around, and the Bible says there was food every day for Elijah and for this woman and for her family. Supernatural provision happened. Why? Because Elijah spoke a word of faith that destroyed the power of fear that was there and the reality of hunger. Because Elijah said, this is what God said, the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the Lord will send rain again in Israel. And so it was. What are we learning from these women? That love in actions has power to help us overcome resentment. It has power to help us make good ethical decisions, impossible choices we have to make. Love gives us wisdom to make those choices easily. Love gives us the ability to give sacrificially to those who are in need. So my prayer is that God will help us, you and I, to practice putting love in action. The trail of love in action leads to supernatural provision. There will always be food in your house. There will always be provision as we dare to walk in love. And finally, but not least, at the time where the widow and her son could have been alone, trying to survive another day, here comes the man of God, and they're not alone anymore. He came with the presence of God, with the word of faith that brought provision, and their lives were changed for the better. May God help us to follow the trail of putting love in action. God bless you.